The stagecoach lurched to a violent stop in front of the dusty general store, and Joanna Zimmerman felt her broken foot slam against the wooden floor, sending white-hot pain shooting up her leg that made her bite down so hard on her lip she tasted blood. She had traveled all the way from Pennsylvania to Los Lunas, New Mexico territory in the scorching August heat of 1878, answering an advertisement from a rancher named Thomas Whitmore who needed a wife to help run his homestead and raise his two young children after his first wife had died in childbirth the previous winter. The journey had been brutal enough without the accident 3 days ago when she had stepped wrong, climbing back into the coach after a rest stop in Kansas, her foot catching between two rocks and twisting with a sickening crack that still echoed in her nightmares. The other passengers had helped her back into the coach, and the driver had wrapped her foot as best he could with strips torn from her petticoat, but the swelling had only grown worse with each passing mile. Now, as she sat in the stifling coach, with sweat dripping down her back and her foot throbbing like a living thing separate from her body, Joanna wondered if Thomas Whitmore would even want her anymore. What use was a mail-order bride who could not walk, could not work, could not chase after children or tend a garden or do any of the 100 tasks required of a frontier wife? The driver opened the door and peered in at her, his weathered face creasing with concern when he saw her pallor. "Miss Zimmerman, we have arrived in Los Lunas," he said gently. "Do you need assistance getting down?" Joanna tried to smile, but suspected it came out more like a grimace. "Yes, please. I am afraid my foot has not improved with the journey." The driver reached in and helped her slide across the seat toward the door. When she tried to put weight on her injured foot, agony exploded through her and her vision went dark around the edges. She would have collapsed entirely if not for the driver's strong grip on her arm. "Easy now," he murmured. "Let me fetch someone to help." But before he could move, a deep voice spoke up from just beyond the coach. "I will take her." Joanna looked up through her pain-blurred vision to see a tall man stepping forward from the shade of the store's overhang. He wore dusty brown trousers, a faded blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned, muscular forearms, and a black hat pushed back on his head to show dark hair and eyes the color of rich earth. He was perhaps 26 or 27, with a strong jaw shadowed with stubble and a mouth set in a serious line that somehow did not seem unkind. "Are you Thomas Whitmore?" Joanna asked, though she already suspected this was not the man she had corresponded with. The letters had described a widower of 40 with graying hair and a weathered face. "No, madam. Name's Adam Hayes. I work on the Whitmore Ranch, have for going on 5 years now. Thomas sent me to fetch you since he could not leave the children." The man's eyes dropped to her foot, which was so swollen now that her boot looked ready to burst at the seams. His jaw tightened. "That looks bad. How long has it been like that?" 3 days, Joanna admitted, feeling tears prick at her eyes, though she fought them back. She had not cried once during the entire journey, refusing to show weakness in front of strangers, but something about this man's straightforward concern made her defenses crumble. "I fell in Kansas. I think it is broken." Adam Hayes muttered something under his breath that might have been a curse. Without another word, he stepped up to the coach and reached for her. "I am going to lift you down. This will likely hurt." He was right. When his hands closed around her waist, and he lifted her from the coach as easily as if she weighed no more than a sack of flour, the movement jostled her foot and she could not hold back a small cry. But then she was cradled against his chest, one of his arms under her knees and the other supporting her back, and he held her so carefully that the pain began to recede to a more manageable level. "Your bags?" he asked the driver. "Just the one trunk and the carpet bag," Joanna said quietly, very aware of how close she was to this stranger, close enough to smell the scent of leather and horses and clean sweat on him, close enough to feel the steady beat of his heart against her side. The driver was already hauling her trunk down from the top of the coach. Adam jerked his chin toward a wagon hitched nearby. "Put them in the back of the wagon there." Miss Zimmerman, we need to get you to Doc Morrison before we head to the ranch. That foot needs proper tending. But Thomas is expecting me, Joanna protested weakly. And the children need care. The children have been managing for a year and a half. They can manage another few hours. You will be no good to anyone if that foot gets infected and has to come off. Adam's tone was firm but not harsh, and he was already carrying her toward the wagon with long, sure strides that somehow did not jar her too badly. Joanna knew he was right, though the practical part of her mind worried about what Thomas would think of the delay. When they reached the wagon, Adam did not simply deposit her on the seat as she expected. Instead, he climbed up first, still holding her, then settled onto the bench and arranged her across his lap with her legs stretched out on the seat beside them. "This is not proper," Joanna said, though her voice lacked conviction. The truth was, she felt safer and more comfortable than she had in days, and the alternative of trying to sit upright with her foot hanging down sounded like torture. "Propriety does not set bones or stop infection," Adam replied. He reached behind the seat and pulled out a worn saddle blanket, folding it and placing it carefully under her injured foot to elevate it. "Doc Morrison's place is just down the street. Hold on." He clicked to the horses, and they started forward at a gentle walk. Joanna found herself pressed against Adam's chest, his arm around her to keep her steady, and she could feel the rise and fall of his breathing. She ought to feel embarrassed or uncomfortable, but instead, she felt something close to relief. For 3 days, she had been forcing herself to stay upright, to smile through the pain, to not burden the other passengers with her problems. Now, held securely in this stranger's capable arms, she finally let herself relax slightly. "Have you worked for Thomas long?" she asked, partly to distract herself from the pain, and partly because she wanted to know more about the man who held her so carefully. "5 years, like I said. I was 21 and drifting when he took me on. He is a good man, fair and decent. Took his wife's death hard, but he is doing his best with those kids." Adam glanced down at her, and something flickered in his dark eyes. "He will treat you well." "I hope I can be useful to him," Joanna said quietly. "This is not how I imagined arriving." "Life rarely goes as we imagine." Adam turned the wagon down a side street, where adobe buildings baked in the afternoon sun. "Doc Morrison is right there, the brown building with the blue door." He pulled the wagon to a stop and called out, "Doc, got a patient for you." An older man with gray hair and spectacles emerged from the building, wiping his hands on a cloth. When he saw Joanna in Adam's arms, he hurried over. "Bring her inside, quickly." "What happened?" "Broken foot 3 days ago," Adam said, climbing down from the wagon with Joanna still cradled against him. "It has gotten worse." Inside the doctor's office, which was blessedly cool after the blazing heat outside, Adam gently lowered Joanna onto an examination table. She could not help the small whimper that escaped when her foot moved, and she saw Adam's jaw clench. "I will be right outside," he said. Then to the doctor, "She is the mail order bride Thomas sent for. We need to get her in good enough shape to travel to the ranch." Doc Morrison was already unlacing Joanna's boot with gentle fingers. "Let me see what we are working with here. Adam, fetch me some water from the pump out back, will you?" Adam nodded and left, and Joanna found herself missing his solid presence immediately. The doctor eased off her boot and stocking, and Joanna saw that her foot was swollen to nearly twice its normal size, mottled with purple and green bruises. "You broke it, all right," Doc Morrison said, probing carefully. "Probably a couple of bones in the midfoot. It is a mercy you did not try to walk on it much. That saved you from worse damage." "Can you fix it?" Joanna asked, hearing the tremor in her own voice. "I can set it properly and splint it. It will take weeks to heal, maybe 2 months before you are walking normally again. You will need to stay off it as much as possible during that time." The doctor looked at her kindly. "I know that is hard advice for a woman coming out here to work, but if you want that foot to heal straight, you have no choice." Adam returned with a bucket of water, and the doctor began the painful process of cleaning and examining the injury. Joanna gripped the edges of the table and tried not to cry out, but when the doctor began to manipulate the bones back into place, she could not help the tears that streamed down her face. Suddenly, Adam was beside her, his hand closing over hers. "Squeeze as hard as you need to," he said quietly. Joanna gripped his calloused hand with all her strength, focusing on the warmth and solidity of it rather than the agony in her foot. Adam did not flinch, just stood there steady as a rock while the doctor worked. By the time Doc Morrison finished wrapping the splint and binding it firmly, Joanna was shaking and exhausted. "There," the doctor said, straightening up. "Keep that clean and dry. Do not put any weight on it for at least 4 weeks, and after that only light weight with a crutch. Come back in 2 weeks, and I will check on how it is healing." "How is she supposed to not walk for 4 weeks?" Adam asked, the first hint of frustration in his voice. "The ranch is 3 miles out of town, and there is work to be done." "That is for Miss Zimmerman and Thomas to figure out," Doc Morrison said. "But I am telling you, if she walks on this foot before it is healed, she will cripple herself permanently. Is that clear?" The weight of those words settled over Joanna like a stone. She had come all this way to be useful, to be a helpmate and a mother to Thomas's children, and now she would be nothing but a burden for weeks or even months. What if Thomas decided he did not want her after all? What if he sent her back to Pennsylvania, back to the tiny room above the seamstress shop where she had spent the last 3 years sewing until her fingers bled, back to the loneliness that had driven her to answer his advertisement in the first place? "I understand," she whispered. Adam paid the doctor and then scooped Joanna up again without being asked. She was too tired to protest, letting her head rest against his shoulder as he carried her back out into the blazing heat. He settled her in the wagon just as he had before, across his lap with her foot elevated, and started the horses moving west out of town. "Thomas will not send you away," Adam said suddenly, as if he could read her thoughts. "He needs a wife and you need a home. We will figure out the rest." "How can I be a wife if I cannot walk?" Joanna asked bitterly. "I cannot cook or clean or tend children or do laundry or any of the things I came here to do." "You can still do plenty while sitting down," Adam pointed out. "Mending, peeling vegetables, teaching the children their letters. And for the rest, well, Thomas has ranch hands who can help with the heavy work." "You mean you," Joanna said, looking up at him. In the bright afternoon light, she could see that his eyes were not just brown, but had flecks of gold in them, like sunlight through honey. A slight smile tugged at the corner of Adam's mouth, the first she had seen from him. "I mean me, yes, and Carlos, and old Pete, and young Jimmy, though he is more trouble than help most days. We will manage." They rode in silence for a while, leaving the scattered buildings of Las Lunas behind and heading into open country dotted with scrub brush and the occasional cottonwood tree. The land was nothing like the green hills of Pennsylvania, but there was a stark beauty to it that Joanna found herself appreciating despite her pain and worry. The sky stretched vast and blue overhead, and in the distance she could see mountains rising purple against the horizon. "It is different from what you are used to, I imagine," Adam said, following her gaze. "Very different, but not bad. Just different." Joanna shifted slightly, trying to find a more comfortable position without jostling her foot. "Where are you from, Mr. Hayes?" "Adam," he corrected. "We do not stand much on formality out here. I am from a little town in Missouri, but I left when I was 16 and have been moving around ever since." "Do you have family there?" Something closed off in Adam's expression. "Not anymore. My parents died of fever when I was 15. I had an older brother, but we went our separate ways after that." "I am sorry," Joanna said softly. She understood loss. Her own parents had died when she was 17, leaving her alone in the world with no prospects and no money. She had worked as a seamstress to survive, but it had been a lonely, difficult existence. "It was a long time ago," Adam said, though his voice had gone flat. Then he seemed to shake off the dark mood. "The ranch is just over this rise, You will be able to see it in a minute." Sure enough, as they crested a low hill, Joanna saw a cluster of buildings in a small valley below. A main house of adobe with a wooden porch, a large barn, several smaller outbuildings, and a few corrals where horses milled about. It was modest but well maintained, and despite everything, Joanna felt a flutter of hope. This would be her home. This was the new life she had traveled so far to find. As they approached, a man emerged from the house and stood on the porch, shading his eyes against the sun. He was exactly as he had described himself in his letters, perhaps 40 years old, with gray beginning to show in his brown hair and beard, wearing work-worn clothes, and a cautious expression. Two children peeked out from behind him, a boy of about 8 and a girl who looked to be 6. Adam pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house. "Thomas, this is Miss Joanna Zimmerman. Joanna, this is Thomas Whitmore and his children, Samuel and Lucy." Thomas stepped down from the porch, his eyes widening when he saw Joanna sitting in Adam's lap. "Miss Zimmerman, I apologize for not coming to fetch you myself, but the children—" He stopped, taking in her splinted foot. "What happened?" "She broke her foot 3 days ago," Adam explained, climbing down from the wagon with Joanna still in his arms. "Doc Morrison set it and splinted it, but she cannot walk for at least 4 weeks." Thomas's face fell, and Joanna saw the calculations running behind his eyes. She forced herself to speak up, to address this directly, rather than let worry fester. "Mr. Whitmore, I understand this is not what you expected. If you wish to reconsider our arrangement, I will understand. But I promise you, I will heal, and I will work hard to be the wife and mother you need." Thomas looked at her for a long moment, then at Adam, who stood there holding her with an expression Joanna could not quite read. Finally, Thomas sighed. "We all have setbacks, Miss Zimmerman. The question is how we handle them. Come inside. Let us get you settled, and we can talk about how to make this work." Adam carried her up the porch steps and into the house, which was dim and cool after the bright sun outside. The interior was neat but sparse, with handmade furniture and very few decorations. Adam set her down carefully on a rocking chair by the fireplace, positioning a small stool under her injured foot. The two children had followed them inside and now stood staring at Joanna with wide, curious eyes. The boy, Samuel, had his father's brown hair and serious expression. The little girl, Lucy, had blonde curls and her mother's features, if the portrait on the wall was any indication. "Children, this is Miss Zimmerman," Thomas said. "She has come a very long way to be here with us, and she has hurt her foot. We need to be gentle and helpful while she heals. Can you do that?" Samuel nodded solemnly, but Lucy stepped forward with the fearlessness of the young. "Does it hurt very bad?" she asked, her voice soft and lisping slightly where she was missing a front tooth. "It hurts some," Joanna admitted, managing a smile. "But your father and Mr. Hayes have been very kind, and the doctor has fixed it up nicely. Adam takes care of all the hurt animals on the ranch," Lucy said matter-of-factly. "He is very good at it. He saved a baby bird that fell out of its nest and a horse that cut its leg on barbed wire." "I can believe that," Joanna said, glancing at Adam, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I will bring in your trunk," Adam said gruffly, heading back outside. Thomas pulled up a chair and sat down facing Joanna. Up close, she could see the lines of worry and grief etched into his face, but also a fundamental kindness in his eyes. "Miss Zimmerman, I will be honest with you. I need help here. The children need a mother's care, and I need a partner to help run this place. But I will not force you into anything if you have changed your mind. We can make some arrangement." "I have not changed my mind," Joanna said firmly. "I came here to build a new life, and I intend to do exactly that. My foot will heal. In the meantime, I can still do plenty of work sitting down, and I can care for the children and help with household tasks that do not require walking." "Then we will make it work," Thomas said, and something in his expression relaxed slightly. "Adam suggested he could help more around the house while you are healing, and I think that is a good idea. He can carry you wherever you need to go and help with the heavier work. Adam returned just then with Joanna's trunk on one shoulder, carrying it as if it weighed nothing. Where do you want this, Thomas? Thomas hesitated, glancing at Joanna. Well, I suppose in the bedroom. Miss Zimmerman and I will need to discuss our arrangements, but for now, she can take the main bedroom and I will sleep in the loft with the boys. Samuel sleeps in the loft already, Adam said. Lucy has the small bedroom. If Miss Zimmerman takes the main room, where will Lucy go? Lucy can sleep with me, Joanna said immediately. If that is acceptable, I would like to get to know her, and I am sure she would be more comfortable with that arrangement anyway. Lucy's face brightened. Really? I can sleep in your room? If your father says yes, Joanna said, looking at Thomas. He nodded slowly. That might work well, actually. Thank you, Miss Zimmerman. Adam, put the trunk in the main bedroom. We will move Lucy's things in there as well. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of activity as everyone adjusted to the new situation. Adam moved Lucy's small bed and belongings into the main bedroom, while Thomas prepared a simple supper of beans and cornbread. Joanna sat in the rocking chair and helped Lucy sort through her dresses and toys, getting to know the little girl who chattered away about her chickens and her favorite doll and the baby rabbits in the barn. Samuel was quieter, hanging back and watching Joanna with wary eyes. She understood that. He was older, remembered his mother more clearly, and probably resented the idea of someone trying to replace her. Joanna did not try to force herself on him, just smiled when he looked her way and answered his occasional questions honestly. When supper was ready, Adam carried Joanna to the table and set her in a chair with her foot propped on another chair. They all sat down together, and Thomas said grace in a simple, heartfelt way that made Joanna feel this man was truly good, despite the awkwardness of their situation. The food was plain, but filling, and Joanna realized she had not eaten a proper meal since yesterday morning. As they ate, Thomas explained the workings of the ranch. They had about 200 head of cattle, a dozen horses, chickens, and a large vegetable garden that was struggling in the summer heat. Adam and the other hands managed most of the cattle work, while Thomas handled the business side and tried to keep up with the household, though he admitted he was not very good at it. I cannot cook anything that does not involve beans or meat, he said with a rueful smile. The children have been living on that and eggs for more than a year now. I am hoping you can expand our menu, Miss Zimmerman. Call me Joanna, please, she said. And yes, I can cook many things, though I will need some help until my foot heals. If someone can bring me ingredients and put pots on the stove, I can talk them through the process. I can do that, Adam said quietly. He had been mostly silent during the meal, but Joanna had caught him watching her several times with that unreadable expression. After supper, Adam carried Joanna to the bedroom while Thomas got the children ready for bed. Lucy came in a few minutes later in her nightgown, chattering excitedly about having someone to sleep in the same room with her again. Joanna changed into her own nightclothes, which took longer than usual with her injured foot, and then settled into the large bed that had clearly been built for two people. Lucy climbed in beside her and cuddled close. I am glad you came, Lucy whispered. Even if your foot is broken. Joanna felt tears sting her eyes again. I am glad too, sweetheart. She heard Thomas putting Samuel to bed in the loft, his low voice carrying through the quiet house. Then Adam's voice, saying goodbye for the night. A few minutes later, Thomas appeared in the doorway of the bedroom. The children are settled, he said quietly. Do you need anything before I turn in? No, thank you. You have all been very kind, Joanna said. Thomas nodded, lingering in the doorway as if he wanted to say something more. Finally, he spoke. I know this is not the start either of us imagined, Joanna, but I am grateful you are here. We will figure things out together. Yes, Joanna agreed. Together. After he left, she lay in the darkness with Lucy's small, warm body beside her, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of this new place, the wind sighing around the corners of the house, a horse whinnying in the distance, the creak of Thomas climbing into his bed in the loft. Despite the pain in her foot and the uncertainty of her situation, Joanna felt something she had not felt in years: hope. She had a place here, even if it was not quite what she had expected. She would heal, and she would make herself useful, and she would build the life she had dreamed of. She just had not expected Adam Hayes to be part of that equation. The next morning, Joanna woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the sounds of activity outside. Lucy was already gone from the bed, and Joanna could hear voices in the main room. She struggled to sit up, wincing as her foot throbbed. It felt slightly better than yesterday, but only slightly. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the doorframe, and Adam's voice called out, "Joanna, Thomas asked me to help you get up and dressed. Is that all right?" Joanna's face flushed. The intimacy of having this man she barely knew help her with such personal tasks was overwhelming, but she could see no alternative. "Yes, come in." Adam entered, his eyes carefully averted. "I will wait outside while you dress. When you are ready, call me, and I will carry you to the kitchen. There is water in the basin for washing." He left before she could respond, and Joanna was grateful for his discretion. She managed to wash her face and upper body, then struggled into a simple brown dress that buttoned up the front. Getting it over her splinted foot was a challenge, but she finally managed. She called out for Adam, and he returned immediately. "Ready?" he asked, coming to the bedside. "Yes, thank you." He lifted her easily, and Joanna tried not to think about how strong he must be to carry her around as if she weighed nothing. She also tried not to notice how her heart beat a little faster when he held her close, or how she liked the clean smell of him and the warmth of his body. She was here to marry Thomas, she reminded herself firmly. Adam was just helping out of kindness and duty. He carried her to the kitchen, where Thomas was attempting to make breakfast, while Lucy and Samuel sat at the table. Thomas looked relieved to see them. "Thank goodness. I was about to burn these eggs," he said, waving a spatula. "Joanna, can you supervise from a chair?" Adam set her in a chair near the stove, positioning it so she could see what Thomas was doing. For the next few minutes, she talked him through finishing the eggs properly and making flapjacks in a skillet. The children watched with fascination, and by the time breakfast was ready, everyone was laughing at Thomas's comical attempts to flip a flapjack that ended with it stuck to the ceiling. "Well, that is one way to test if it is done," Adam said dryly, and even Samuel cracked a smile. They ate breakfast together, and then Thomas and Adam went out to do the morning chores, while Joanna stayed inside with the children. Lucy brought her a basket of mending that had piled up, and Joanna set to work repairing torn shirts and pants, while Lucy played with her dolls and Samuel practiced his letters on a slate. It was peaceful, domestic work, and Joanna found herself settling into the rhythm of it. Around mid-morning, Adam came back inside, carrying a strange contraption. "I made this for you," he said, setting it down near Joanna's chair. It was a wooden crate on wheels with a cushioned seat and a long handle. "You can sit in this and someone can pull you around, or you can use your good foot to push yourself. That way you do not have to be carried everywhere." Joanna stared at the clever little cart, her throat tight with emotion. "You made this? This morning?" "I had some wood in the barn and some old wagon wheels. It did not take long." Adam shrugged as if it were nothing, but Joanna could see the care that had gone into the construction. The seat was padded with folded blankets, and the wheels were smooth and even. "It is wonderful," she said softly. "Thank you, Adam." He ducked his head, that now familiar slight flush coloring his cheeks. "Try it out. See if it works." Adam helped her transfer from the chair to the cart, and Joanna found that by pushing with her good foot, she could indeed propel herself around the room. Lucy clapped her hands with delight. "It is like a chariot. Can you race with it?" "I do not think racing is a good idea," Joanna said, laughing. "But this will help me so much. I can move around the kitchen and the house without needing to be carried." "You will still need help with some things," Adam said. "Steps mostly, and getting in and out of bed. But this should make you feel less trapped. He understood, Joanna realized. He understood how hard it was for her to be so dependent, so helpless. She looked up at him, this quiet cowboy with his careful hands and perceptive eyes, and felt something shift in her chest. Thank you, she said again, putting all her gratitude into the words. Adam nodded and headed back outside, and Joanna spent the rest of the morning learning to maneuver her new cart. It was clumsy at first, but she quickly got the hang of it. She wheeled herself around the kitchen, examining the supplies and planning meals. The pantry was poorly stocked, with mostly beans, flour, and preserved vegetables that looked like they had been there for over a year. She made a mental list of things they would need and resolved to ask Thomas about going to town. At noon, Thomas came in for the midday meal, and Joanna talked him through making sandwiches and heating up some canned tomatoes. They ate together, and then Thomas cleared his throat. Joanna, I have been thinking about our arrangement. I know we agreed in the letters to marry fairly quickly after you arrived, but given the circumstances, I wondered if you might prefer to wait until you are healed. No sense having a wedding when the bride cannot stand. Joanna had been thinking the same thing, but she also understood the practical considerations. Will people talk if I am living here and we are not married? Probably, Thomas admitted. But with Adam and the other hands around and the children, I think we can weather any gossip. I just want you to be comfortable, and I know this has all happened so fast. I appreciate that, Joanna said. She liked Thomas, found him kind and decent, but she did not feel any romantic connection to him yet. Perhaps that would come with time. I think waiting makes sense. It will give us time to get to know each other properly. Thomas looked relieved. Good. That settles it then. We will wait until you are walking again, and then we can have a proper wedding. That afternoon, Adam taught Joanna how to use a pair of crutches he had also made, so she could get around for short distances without the cart. It was painful and exhausting, but Joanna was determined to master it. Adam stayed close, ready to catch her if she fell, and his steady presence gave her confidence. You are doing well, he said after she managed to make it across the room and back. But do not push too hard. You need to let that foot rest. I know, I just hate feeling useless, Joanna said, lowering herself back into the cart with his help. You are not useless. You have already made this house feel more like a home in one day than it has in over a year, Adam said quietly. Then, as if embarrassed by the sentiment, he added, I should get back to work. Call if you need anything. As the days passed, Joanna fell into a routine. She would wake early, and Adam would help her get up and dressed. She would supervise breakfast from her cart, then spend the morning doing mending or teaching the children their lessons while Thomas and Adam worked outside. Adam would come in at midday to help with dinner, and Joanna found herself looking forward to those times when he was in the kitchen with her, following her instructions to make soups and stews, and even one memorable day, an apple pie with dried apples. I never learned to cook much, Adam admitted, as he carefully crimped the edges of the pie crust under Joanna's direction. My mother died before she could teach me, and after that it was just campfire food. You are learning quickly, Joanna said. You have good hands for it. Adam glanced at her, something warm in his expression. Good hands for carpentry and ranch work, maybe. Not for delicate things. I disagree. You built that cart and these crutches, and you handle the children so gently. That takes skill and care. Adam did not respond, but Joanna saw the color rise in his face again. She was beginning to realize that he did not know how to accept compliments, and she wondered what in his past had made him so uncertain of his own worth. In the evenings, they would all eat together, and then Thomas would sit on the porch with his pipe while Joanna put the children to bed. Lucy had attached herself firmly to Joanna, following her around in the cart and chattering constantly. Samuel was slower to warm up, but Joanna noticed he had started bringing his slate to her for help with his sums, and sometimes he would sit near her while she worked, just being quietly present. Adam usually left after supper to sleep in the bunkhouse with the other hands, but sometimes he would linger on the porch, talking with Thomas about ranch business or just sitting in comfortable silence. Joanna found herself watching for him through the window, noticing the way the lamplight caught in his dark hair, the way he would lean back in his chair with his long legs stretched out in front of him. Stop it, she told herself firmly. You are here to marry Thomas. Adam is just being kind because Thomas asked him to help, but her heart did not seem to listen to reason. 2 weeks after her arrival, true to his word, Adam drove Joanna back to Los Lunas to see Doc Morrison. He helped her into the wagon, and this time she sat on the bench beside him rather than in his lap, though she found herself missing the closeness. The ride into town was pleasant, with Adam pointing out landmarks and telling her stories about the area. That is where Carlos got chased by a bull last year, he said, indicating a rocky outcropping. He had to climb up on those rocks and stay there for 3 hours until the bull wandered off. We have never let him forget it. Joanna laughed. I still have not met Carlos or the other hands properly. They always seem to be out on the range when I am awake. They will be back this weekend. We are bringing the cattle in closer to the ranch for branding. It will be loud and chaotic, but the children love it. Adam glanced at her. You should be able to watch from the porch if you want. I would like that. I want to understand how the ranch works, even if I cannot help with it yet. At Doc Morrison's office, Adam carried Joanna inside and set her on the examination table. The doctor unwrapped the splint carefully and examined her foot, probing gently while Joanna tried not to wince. It is healing well, he announced. The swelling has gone down considerably, and the bones feel like they are knitting properly. Keep up what you are doing. Rest, elevation, no weight on it. In another 2 weeks, we can try letting you walk a little bit with the crutches. 2 more weeks, Joanna said, trying not to feel discouraged. I know it seems like a long time, but this is actually faster than I expected, Doc Morrison said kindly. You have been taking good care of it, and I suspect having people around to help has made a big difference. If you had been alone trying to manage, you would probably have done more damage by now. On the way back to the ranch, Joanna was quiet, lost in thought. Adam seemed to sense her mood. What is bothering you? I just wish I could do more. Thomas needs a wife who can run the household and help with the work, not someone who has to be taken care of like an invalid. Thomas knew life out here was unpredictable when he sent for a bride, Adam said. Things do not always go according to plan. That is just how it is. Is that why you never married? Joanna asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. I am sorry. That is none of my business. It is all right, and the answer is yes, partly. I move around a lot, or I used to. Never seemed fair to ask a woman to put up with that. Adam was quiet for a moment. And partly because I never found anyone who fit. Fit? Someone who understood this life, who could handle the hard parts and still find joy in it, who did not need fancy things or city life to be happy. He glanced at her. Someone like you. Actually, Joanna's heart stuttered. Adam, I am not saying anything improper, he interrupted quickly. Just that you are handling this situation with more grace than most people would. Thomas is lucky to have found you. Thomas. Right, she was here for Thomas. Joanna looked down at her hands twisted in her lap. Thomas is a good man. He is, one of the best I have known. Adam's voice was firm, almost as if he were reminding himself of something. He will make you happy, Joanna. I am sure of it. They did not speak much for the rest of the ride home, but the silence felt heavy with things unsaid. That weekend, as promised, the hands drove several dozen cattle close to the ranch for branding. Joanna watched from the porch in her cart, with Lucy beside her and Samuel perched on the porch railing. The air filled with dust and the bawling of cattle, and she watched as Adam and the other cowboys roped and branded the calves with practiced efficiency. Adam moved with a fluid grace on horseback that took Joanna's breath away. He seemed to anticipate what the cattle would do before they did it, positioning his horse perfectly to cut out a calf or block a steer from breaking away from the herd. When he swung down from the saddle to help wrestle a particularly stubborn calf, she saw the play of muscles under his shirt, the focused intensity in his face. Adam is the best rider on the ranch, Lucy said proudly, as if reading Joanna's thoughts. Papa says he could work anywhere, but he stays here because he likes us. Samuel nodded. He taught me to ride last summer. Papa does not have time, but Adam took me out every evening for a month until I could stay in the saddle by myself. Joanna filed away these small details, building a picture of Adam Hayes that went beyond the quiet, helpful cowboy who carried her around. He was patient and skilled, loyal and kind, good with children and animals. He was exactly the kind of man any woman would be lucky to have, and he was not hers. He never would be. Thomas came up onto the porch during a break, wiping his forehead with a bandana. "What do you think, Joanna? Quite a spectacle, is it not?" "It is amazing," she said honestly. "You all work so well together. We have a good crew. Adam keeps them organized and working hard. I do not know what I would do without him." Thomas smiled at her, and she saw genuine affection in his expression. "Just like I am glad to have you here. The house feels alive again with you and the children in it." Joanna smiled back, pushing away the complicated feelings churning inside her. Thomas deserved a wife who could love him fully, not one whose heart had inconveniently fixed itself on someone else. She would work on that. She would learn to love Thomas the way she should. After all, love was as much about choice and commitment as it was about feeling, was it not? At least that was what she told herself. As the days stretched into weeks, Joanna's foot continued to heal. At the 4-week mark, Doc Morrison gave her permission to start putting light weight on it using the crutches, and Joanna practiced obsessively, determined to regain her independence. It was frustratingly slow, and her foot ached after even a few minutes of walking, but it was progress. Adam still helped her in and out of bed each morning and evening, and those moments of closeness were becoming both the best and worst parts of Joanna's day. She looked forward to them with an anticipation that made her feel guilty, and yet she could not help herself. When his hands circled her waist, when he held her against his chest, when his breath stirred her hair, she felt more alive than she had in years. It was wrong. She knew it was wrong. But knowing and feeling were two different things. One evening, about 5 weeks after her arrival, Joanna was sitting on the porch in the twilight, watching the sunset over the distant mountains. The children were already in bed, and Thomas had ridden out to check on some fence line that needed repair. Adam came up onto the porch and sat down on the steps, his hat in his hands. "Mind if I sit here for a bit?" he asked. "Of course not. It is your porch as much as anyone's." Adam turned his hat in his hands, not looking at her. "I have been thinking, once your foot is healed and you and Thomas are married, I should probably move on. There are other ranches looking for good hands, and I have stayed here longer than I usually stay anywhere." Joanna felt as if he had reached into her chest and squeezed her heart. "Why would you leave? Thomas said you have been here 5 years. This is your home." "That is just it. I have gotten too comfortable, too settled. It is not good for me to stay in one place too long." Adam finally looked at her, and something in his eyes made it hard for Joanna to breathe. "And there are other reasons it would be better if I left." "What reasons?" Joanna asked, though she thought she might already know the answer. Adam held her gaze for a long moment, and she saw the struggle in his face. Finally, he said quietly, "I think you know, Joanna." The use of her first name, spoken in that low, rough voice, sent a shiver through her. She should deny it, should pretend she did not understand what he meant. But she was tired of pretending, tired of fighting what she felt. "I know," she whispered. "But Adam, I came here to marry Thomas. I made a commitment. I know that. That is why I need to leave." Adam stood up, jamming his hat back on his head. "Thomas is my friend, one of the few I have ever had. I will not do anything to hurt him or betray his trust. Once you two are married, I will ride out and find work somewhere else. And if I do not want you to go? The words were out before Joanna could stop them. Adam's jaw clenched. It does not matter what either of us wants. You are going to be Thomas's wife. That is how it has to be. What if I am making a mistake? Joanna asked, her voice breaking. What if I am choosing the wrong man? Then you should have thought of that before you came out here, Adam said, and there was pain in his voice. Thomas already lost one wife. He deserves better than to have another one leave him. Those children deserve better. I would never leave them. I love Samuel and Lucy already. But do you love Thomas? Adam asked bluntly. Because he loves you, Joanna. Maybe he has not said it yet, but I can see it in how he looks at you, how he talks about you. He is falling for you, and if you do not feel the same way, you need to tell him before it is too late. Joanna covered her face with her hands. Everything Adam said was true, and it made her feel like the worst kind of person. I care about Thomas. I respect him. I want to make him happy. That is not the same thing as loving him. Maybe not, but love can grow with time, can it not? People have good marriages built on respect and companionship. It does not have to be passionate romance. Adam made a harsh sound. You deserve more than that. You deserve someone who makes your heart race, who you cannot stop thinking about, who you would cross a desert for. You deserve to be loved completely, Joanna, not just comfortably. And what about what Thomas deserves? Joanna shot back, lowering her hands to look at him. He deserves a wife who keeps her promises. He deserves stability for his children. He deserves not to be hurt again. So you will sacrifice your own happiness to keep a promise to a man you do not love? Adam's voice was rough with emotion. That is not noble, Joanna. That is just fear. Fear of what? Of taking a risk, of choosing something uncertain instead of something safe, of admitting what you really want. Adam took a step toward her, his dark eyes intense. Tell me you do not feel what I feel. Tell me I am imagining this thing between us, and I will never mention it again. Joanna opened her mouth, but she could not force the lie out. Instead, she said, It does not matter what I feel. I cannot break Thomas's heart. I cannot tear apart this family that is just starting to heal. I made my choice when I answered his advertisement and came out here. Then I will make mine, Adam said flatly. After the wedding, I am leaving. I cannot stay here and watch you build a life with another man, even if he is my friend. I am not that strong. He turned and walked off the porch, disappearing into the growing darkness, leaving Joanna alone with her tears and her guilt and the ache in her chest that felt like it might never go away. The next few days were strained. Adam still helped Joanna with the things she needed, still carried her when necessary, but he did not linger or chat like before. He was polite, distant, and it hurt worse than Joanna could have imagined. She found herself grieving for the easy companionship they had built, the laughter and conversations and comfortable silences. Thomas noticed something was wrong. Did you and Adam have an argument? He asked one evening after supper. Not exactly, Joanna said carefully. He mentioned he might be thinking of moving on after the wedding, and I told him I thought he should stay. I think he is just being stubborn. Thomas frowned. I will talk to him. I need him here, especially with you still healing and the ranch work being what it is. I cannot imagine why he would want to leave now. Please do not pressure him, Joanna said quickly. If he feels he needs to go, maybe it is for the best. But Thomas shook his head. Adam is like family to me. He helped me through the worst time of my life after Martha died. If something is bothering him, I want to help if I can. The next day, Thomas and Adam had a long conversation out by the barn. Joanna watched from the window, seeing Adam's stubborn set to his shoulders, the way Thomas gestured as he talked, trying to convince him of something. Finally, Adam nodded and the two men shook hands, but when Adam glanced toward the house, his expression was bleak. That night, Thomas told Joanna that Adam had agreed to stay for at least a few more months after the wedding, but only if Thomas really needed him. I do not know what has gotten into him, Thomas said, shaking his head. He has always been restless, but I thought he had finally settled here for good. Joanna said nothing, guilt eating at her. This was her fault. Her feelings, which she had not asked for and did not want, were destroying the stability and friendship that Adam and Thomas had built over 5 years. If she had just controlled herself better, had been more careful to keep her emotions hidden, none of this would be happening. 6 weeks after her arrival, Joanna's foot had healed enough that she could walk short distances with a cane Doc Morrison had provided. It was wonderful to have mobility again, even if her foot still ached if she stood too long. She could now move around the kitchen independently, go in and out of the house, and even walk out to the barn to see the animals with Lucy. Thomas took this as a sign that they could start planning the wedding. "What do you think about having it next month?" he asked one evening. "That would give us time to make arrangements and let people know. We could have it here at the ranch, just something simple with neighbors and friends." Joanna's stomach twisted. "That sounds fine," she managed to say. Thomas smiled, looking more relaxed than she had seen him. "I know this has been a long and difficult time for you, Joanna, but I am glad you came. I think we can build a good life together." "I hope so," Joanna said, and she meant it. She did care about Thomas. She wanted him to be happy. She just was not sure she could be the one to make him happy, not when her heart kept reaching towards someone else. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Thomas ordered fabric from the general store in town so Joanna could sew herself a proper dress for the wedding. Several neighbor families came by to meet her and offer their congratulations. Everyone seemed genuinely happy for Thomas and the children, and Joanna pasted on a smile and accepted their good wishes with what she hoped looked like appropriate joy. Adam kept his distance, working long hours out on the range and coming back only for meals. When he did have to be near Joanna, he was unfailingly polite, but treated her with the same friendly detachment he showed the other ranch hands' wives when they visited. It was as if he had locked away whatever he felt and thrown away the key. Joanna told herself this was for the best. It was easier this way. But at night, lying in bed with Lucy curled up beside her, she found herself crying into her pillow and did not know how to stop. A week before the wedding, Joanna was working in the vegetable garden that ran along the side of the house. Her foot was strong enough now that she could manage light work as long as she was careful, and she had discovered that she loved working with the plants. The garden had been neglected, but with careful weeding and watering, it was starting to produce tomatoes, beans, and squash. She was on her hands and knees pulling weeds when she heard hoofbeats approaching fast. Looking up, she saw a rider coming hard toward the ranch, and as he got closer, she recognized one of the hands, young Jimmy, who had been out checking the fence line with Adam and Carlos. Jimmy pulled his horse up in a cloud of dust. "Miss Zimmerman, where is Mr. Whitmore?" "He went into town for supplies." "What is wrong?" "It is Adam. There was an accident. We were trying to move a downed tree off the fence line and the rope snapped. The tree rolled and pinned his leg. Carlos stayed with him, but we need help getting him out and back here." Joanna's heart seemed to stop. "How bad is it?" "Bad. His leg is trapped and he is bleeding. We need more men and the wagon to move the tree and bring him back." "Old Pete and Samuel are in the barn," Joanna said, forcing herself to think clearly through her panic. "Get them and hitch up the wagon. I will gather medical supplies and ride out with you." "Miss Zimmerman, you cannot your foot." "My foot is fine. Now go." Joanna pushed herself to her feet and hurried toward the house as fast as her healing foot would allow. Her heart pounded as she gathered clean linens, the medical kit Doc Morrison had left with them, and a bottle of whiskey for pain or disinfection. By the time she made it back outside, Jimmy and old Pete had the wagon ready, and Samuel was standing with Lucy, both children's faces pale with worry. "I want to come," Samuel said. "No. You stay here and take care of your sister. If your father comes back before we do, tell him what happened and where we went." Joanna let old Pete help her up onto the wagon seat, and they took off at a pace that made her injured foot throb, but she did not care. All she could think about was Adam trapped under a tree, bleeding in pain. Please let him be all right, she prayed. Please. It took 20 minutes to reach the site of the accident, and when they arrived, Joanna's stomach dropped. A massive cottonwood tree lay across the fence line, and she could see Adam on the ground beneath it, the tree trunk across his lower leg. Carlos was kneeling beside him, his hand on Adam's shoulder, talking to him in low, urgent Spanish. Old Pete and Jimmy jumped down and began rigging ropes to the tree, using the horses to try to lift it. Joanna climbed down carefully and went to Adam's side. His face was gray with pain, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscles jumping. When he saw her, his eyes widened. "Joanna, what are you doing here? You should not be quiet," she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the fear coursing through her. She knelt beside him and took his hand, which was cold and clammy. "We are going to get you out of here." "My leg is broken," Adam said through gritted teeth. "Maybe worse. I can feel—" He stopped, breathing hard. "Do not think about it. Just hold on." Joanna looked at the tree pinning him. The trunk was perhaps 2 feet in diameter, far too heavy for men alone to lift. But with the horses pulling and everyone pushing, they might be able to shift it enough to drag Adam free. Old Pete called out, "Ready! On 3!" The horses strained against the ropes. The men pushed, and slowly, agonizingly, the tree began to move. Adam groaned, a sound of such raw pain that Joanna wanted to weep, but she held his hand tight and kept her eyes on his face. "Almost there," she murmured. "You are doing so well. Just a little more." With a final heave, the tree rolled just far enough, and Carlos grabbed Adam under the arms and pulled him free. Adam cried out, and Joanna saw that his left leg was bent at a wrong angle, the trousers torn and bloody. "Get him in the wagon," Joanna ordered, falling back on the same calm authority she had used when helping her mother birth her younger siblings years ago. "Carefully. Do not jostle that leg more than necessary." The men lifted Adam as gently as they could and placed him in the wagon bed on the pile of blankets Joanna had thrown in. She climbed up beside him, ignoring the protest from her own healing foot, and began cutting away his pant leg to see the damage. It was bad. The leg was clearly broken, with bone pressing against the skin but not puncturing through, thank God. There was a deep gash on his calf that was bleeding steadily, and already the leg was swelling badly. "I need to stop this bleeding and stabilize the leg before we move him," Joanna said. She folded a clean cloth and pressed it hard against the wound. Adam gasped, his back arching. "I know it hurts. I am sorry." "Carlos, hold this in place while I wrap it." Working as fast as she dared, Joanna bound the wound tightly and then used pieces of wood from the fence and more strips of cloth to make a rough splint, immobilizing the broken leg. Adam bore it with his jaw clenched and sweat pouring down his face, but he did not cry out again. "All right, get us back to the ranch as fast as you can without shaking him to pieces," Joanna told old Pete, who nodded and started the horses moving. Joanna sat beside Adam, one hand on his shoulder to brace him and the other holding his hand. "You should not be here," Adam muttered, his voice weak. "Your foot, my foot is fine. Stop worrying about me and save your strength." "Stubborn woman." "Right back at you, stubborn man." Despite everything, she saw the ghost of a smile cross Adam's face. Then his eyes closed, and he seemed to drift, and Joanna felt fear spike through her. Adam, stay awake, talk to me." His eyes opened, unfocused. "What do you want me to say?" "Anything. Tell me about Missouri." "You never talk about it." "Nothing to tell. Small town, smaller people. After my parents died, my brother and I worked whatever jobs we could find. He wanted to go east. I wanted to go west. We fought about it, and I left. Never saw him again." Adam's breathing was labored. "One of my many regrets. You could find him, write to him. Too much time has passed. He probably does not want to hear from me." Adam squeezed her hand weakly. "Joanna, if something happens to me—" Nothing is going to happen to you. If it does, I want you to know. He stopped, struggling for words. You were right about staying, about Thomas. He is a good man, and he deserves you. Promise me you will make him happy. Adam, stop talking like this. You are going to be fine. But Joanna's voice broke on the words, and tears streamed down her face. You have to be fine. Promise me, Adam insisted, his dark eyes boring into hers with an intensity that took her breath away. I promise, Joanna whispered, though the words felt like they were tearing her apart. Adam nodded, seemed satisfied, and let his eyes close again. This time, when Joanna tried to rouse him, he did not respond, and panic flooded through her. She pressed her fingers to his neck and felt a pulse, but it was rapid and thready. Hurry, she called to old Pete. He is losing too much blood. The ride back to the ranch felt like it took hours, though it could not have been more than 15 minutes. When they pulled up to the house, Samuel and Lucy came running out, and Thomas's horse was tied at the rail. He emerged from the house, took one look at the wagon, and went pale. Get him inside, Thomas said, his voice tight. Samuel, ride to town and fetch Doc Morrison. Tell him it is an emergency. Lucy, boil water and get all the clean sheets you can find. The children ran to do as they were told, while Thomas, Carlos, and old Pete carefully lifted Adam out of the wagon. Joanna followed as they carried him into the house and laid him on the big bed in the main bedroom. She did not even think about the propriety of having an unmarried man in her bedroom. All that mattered was saving his life. Thomas cut away the rest of Adam's clothing, while Joanna washed the blood from the wound on his leg. The bleeding had slowed thanks to the bandaging she had done, but the leg was a mess. The break was severe, and she could see that some of the swelling was from internal bleeding. Adam drifted in and out of consciousness, groaning when they moved him, but not truly aware. Will he live? Lucy asked from the doorway, her voice small and scared. Yes, Joanna said firmly, as much to convince herself as the child. He is strong, and Doc Morrison will be here soon. He will be fine. But as the minutes ticked by, and Adam's condition did not improve, Joanna's fear grew. What if the doctor could not save the leg? What if the internal bleeding was too severe? What if she lost him before she ever had the chance to tell him what he meant to her? Thomas worked beside her, following her instructions without question. He heated water, brought fresh bandages, held Adam down when he thrashed deliriously. You did good work out there, Thomas said quietly. That splint probably saved his leg, maybe his life. I did what anyone would do, Joanna said, but her hands were shaking now that the immediate crisis had passed, and there was nothing to do but wait. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they heard hoofbeats and Samuel's voice calling, Doc Morrison is here. The doctor came in like a whirlwind, taking in the situation with a practiced eye. He examined Adam quickly, asked Joanna questions about what had happened and what she had done, and then nodded. All right, I need to set this leg properly and clean out that wound. It is going to be ugly, and I need all of you to help hold him down. He is not conscious now, which is a blessing, but he might wake up when I start working. Thomas, Carlos, and old Pete positioned themselves to hold Adam still while Doc Morrison worked. Joanna held Adam's hand and murmured to him, not even sure what she was saying, just trying to offer comfort through her voice. The doctor worked with swift, sure movements, manipulating the broken bone back into place with an audible crack that made Joanna's stomach turn. Adam jerked and cried out but did not wake fully, thank God. By the time Doc Morrison finished cleaning and stitching the gash, splinting the leg properly, and binding it securely, Adam had gone still and silent, his face the color of old bone. The doctor checked his pulse and breathing and then straightened up, wiping his hands. He has lost a lot of blood and the break is severe. The next 24 hours will tell us if he is going to make it. If infection sets in, there is not much I can do. Keep him still, keep the leg elevated, and try to get fluids into him when he wakes. I will come back tomorrow to check on him. Thank you, doctor, Thomas said, pressing money into the man's hand. After Doc Morrison left, Thomas looked at Joanna, who had not let go of Adam's hand. You should rest. You have been on that foot all day and you look exhausted. I am staying with him, Joanna said flatly. You can bring me food and water, but I am not leaving his side. Thomas looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Joanna's expression must have stopped him. All right, I will have Carlos and old Pete take shifts as well in case you need anything. Lucy can sleep with Samuel tonight. He left, and Joanna pulled a chair close to the bedside and settled in. She kept Adam's hand in hers, as if her grip alone could keep him tethered to life. His skin was hot now, and she knew that was not a good sign. She fetched cool water and a cloth and bathed his face, his neck, his chest, trying to bring the fever down. You have to fight, she whispered to him. You are strong, Adam, the strongest man I have ever known. You cannot leave now. We need you. Thomas needs you. The children need you. Her voice broke. I need you. There was no response, just the harsh sound of his breathing in the quiet room. Joanna kept her vigil through the night. Thomas brought her food that she picked at without tasting, and Lucy came in before bed to kiss Adam's hand and whisper, Please get better. Samuel stood in the doorway for a long time, his face streaked with tears, before finally turning away. In the darkest hours before dawn, Adam's fever spiked higher and he began to thrash, muttering incoherently. Joanna tried to hold him still, afraid he would damage his leg further, but he was too strong. She climbed onto the bed beside him, pressing her body against his to pin him down, her arms around him. Shh, it is all right. You are safe. You are home, she murmured over and over. And gradually Adam settled, his head turning toward her voice. His eyes opened, fever bright and unfocused. Joanna, he rasped, I am here. I am right here. Hurts, he whispered. I know, I am so sorry. Joanna smoothed his hair back from his forehead. The doctor set your leg. You need to rest and let it heal. Can't lose you. Adam mumbled, not making sense. Have to stay. Can't leave. I am not leaving. I am right here with you. Love you, Adam said, so quietly Joanna almost missed it. Always loved you. Joanna's breath caught, tears flooding her eyes. Oh, Adam. But he had already drifted away again, lost in fever dreams. Joanna did not know if he would remember saying it when he woke, if he woke. She held him through the rest of the night, her own body aching and her foot throbbing, but she did not move. She could not. If Adam was going to fight for his life, she would be right here fighting beside him. Dawn broke gray and cool, and Adam's fever finally began to break. His skin cooled, his breathing eased, and he fell into what looked like genuine sleep rather than unconsciousness. Joanna finally let herself relax, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. She knew she should get up, should move back to the chair, should do something proper and sensible, but she was so tired, and Adam was warm and solid beside her, and just for a moment, she let herself stay, her head on his shoulder and her arm across his chest. That was how Thomas found them when he came to check on them an hour later. Joanna woke to find him standing in the doorway, an unreadable expression on his face. She sat up quickly, wincing as her stiff muscles protested. Thomas, he was thrashing and I was trying to keep him still. Thomas held up a hand. You do not need to explain. I can see you have been caring for him all night. He came into the room and checked Adam's forehead himself. The fever has broken. That is a good sign. Yes, the doctor said the next 24 hours would tell, and we are past the worst of that now. Joanna climbed carefully out of the bed, every muscle in her body screaming. I should check his bandages and make sure there is no infection. Let me do that, Thomas said quietly. You need to rest, Joanna. You are going to make yourself sick. But please. Thomas's voice was gentle but firm. Go and sleep for a few hours. I will watch him. If anything changes, I will wake you immediately. Joanna hesitated, looking at Adam's sleeping face. She did not want to leave him, but she was so tired she could barely think straight. Finally, she nodded. Just a few hours, then I am coming back. She went to Lucy's small bedroom and collapsed on the narrow bed, not even bothering to undress. Sleep claimed her immediately, dark and dreamless. When she woke, the sun was high in the sky and her mouth was dry as dust. She dragged herself up and splashed water on her face from the basin, then hurried back to the main bedroom. Adam was still asleep, but Carlos was sitting in the chair beside the bed now instead of Thomas. "How is he?" Joanna asked. "Stable. The fever has not come back and he has been sleeping quietly. Mr. Whitmore checked the leg and said it looked good. No sign of infection yet." Carlos smiled at her. "He is a tough one, our Adam. He will pull through." "Where is Thomas?" "Out with old Pete, taking care of things that cannot wait. He said to tell you he left food in the kitchen for you, and to please eat something." Joanna realized she was starving. She went to the kitchen and found bread, cheese, and cold chicken, which she devoured while standing at the counter. Lucy came in from outside, her face brightening when she saw Joanna. "You are awake. Papa said to let you sleep. Is Adam better?" "He is doing better, yes. His fever broke and he is resting." Lucy threw her arms around Joanna's waist. "I was so scared. I do not want Adam to die like Mama did." "He is not going to die," Joanna said, hugging the little girl tightly. "He is too stubborn for that." She went back to the bedroom and took over the watch from Carlos. Adam slept through the rest of the day and into the evening. Thomas came back, checked on both Adam and Joanna, and then went to fix supper for the children. Night fell, and Joanna lit the lamp beside the bed, settling in for another long vigil. Around midnight, Adam finally stirred. His eyes opened, clear for the first time in over 24 hours, and focused on Joanna's face. "Hey," he said, his voice rough and weak, but unmistakably himself. "Hey," Joanna said, relief flooding through her so strongly she felt dizzy. "You are awake. How do you feel?" "Like a tree fell on me." Adam tried to shift and groaned. "My leg is broken," but Doc Morrison said it properly. "You need to stay still and let it heal. No moving around." Joanna poured water from the pitcher on the bedside table and held the cup to his lips. He drank gratefully, then sank back against the pillows. "How long have I been out?" "A day and a half. You had a fever last night, but it broke this morning." Joanna hesitated. "You said some things while you were delirious. I do not know if you remember." Adam's eyes met hers, and she saw awareness there, and resignation. "I remember. I meant what I said, Joanna. All of it. Adam, I know. You made your choice, and I respect that. But I am tired of lying, especially to myself. I love you. I have loved you since the day I carried you off that stagecoach with your foot broken and your eyes full of tears and determination. I love your strength and your kindness and your laugh and the way you read stories to Lucy before bed and help Samuel with his sums." Adam's voice was getting stronger as he spoke, as if saying these things out loud was giving him energy. "I love that you came out here alone to build a new life, that you did not give up even when everything went wrong. I love everything about you, and I cannot pretend I do not anymore." Joanna felt tears streaming down her face. "I love you too," she whispered. "I tried not to. I tried so hard, but I cannot help it." "Then do not marry Thomas," Adam said urgently, trying to push himself up on his elbows and falling back with a gasp of pain. "Tell him the truth. He is a good man. He will understand." "Will he?" Joanna asked. "Adam, I made him a promise. He has built his life around the idea of me becoming his wife. The children have started to love me. I cannot just walk away from that. Even if staying means being miserable for the rest of your life, I do not know if I would be miserable. Maybe in time, I could learn to love Thomas the way I love you. Maybe." "Stop," Adam interrupted, his voice hard. Stop lying to yourself and to me. You do not love Thomas that way, and you never will. You are settling for comfortable when you could have everything. And what is everything? Joanna demanded, her own frustration and pain boiling over. You? A cowboy who drifts from place to place and does not even own a home of his own? At least with Thomas, I would have stability, a family, a future I can count on. Adam flinched as if she had struck him. You are right. I have nothing to offer you. Thomas can give you everything I cannot. So do what makes sense. Marry him, be practical. His voice had gone cold and flat. But do not expect me to watch it happen. As soon as I can travel, I am leaving this ranch, and I am never coming back. Adam, I did not mean— Yes, you did, and you are right. I am nobody, just a drifter who does not even know where his own brother is. Thomas is the one with the ranch and the stable life and the bright future. Of course, that is what you should choose. Adam turned his face away from her. I am tired. I want to sleep. Adam, please. Just go, Joanna. Please. Joanna stood there for a moment, her heart breaking into pieces. She wanted to take back her words, wanted to explain that she had lashed out because she was scared and confused and did not know what to do. But Adam had closed his eyes, and his jaw was set in that stubborn line she knew so well, and she knew he would not listen. She left the room and walked out onto the porch, wrapping her arms around herself in the cool night air. What was she going to do? She loved Adam with everything in her, but she had made a commitment to Thomas. She cared about Thomas, respected him, wanted him to be happy. But she did not love him, not the way a wife should love a husband. And Thomas deserved to know the truth. The thought terrified her. What if he sent her away? What if she ended up with nothing? No Adam and no Thomas and no home. But staying and lying seemed worse. Adam was right about that, at least. Everyone deserved honesty, even if the truth was painful. She heard the door open behind her and turned to see Thomas stepping out onto the porch. He came to stand beside her, looking out at the dark landscape. Joanna, we need to talk, he said quietly. I know. Thomas, Let me go first. Thomas turned to face her, and in the moonlight she could see sadness in his eyes. I saw how you looked at Adam after the accident. I saw how you stayed with him all night, how you could not bear to leave his side. And just now when I went to check on him, he told me you two love each other. Joanna's breath caught. He told you? He said he did not want me marrying you under false pretenses, that I deserved to know the truth. Thomas's mouth twisted. I told him I already knew. I think I have known for weeks now, maybe longer. I just did not want to admit it to myself. Thomas, I am so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I came here fully intending to be a good wife to you, but somewhere along the way, you fell in love with someone else, Thomas finished. I do not blame you, Joanna. Adam is a good man, maybe the best I have ever known. And I saw how he looked at you too, though he tried to hide it. You two belong together. But what about you and the children? I do not want to hurt you. I will not lie and say this does not hurt, Thomas said honestly. I had started to hope, to imagine a future with you. But Joanna, I had a real marriage once. I loved Martha with everything in me. I know what that looks like, and what we have is not it. You deserve that kind of love, and so do I, even if I never find it again. I am so sorry, Joanna whispered, tears streaming down her face again. Thomas pulled her into a gentle hug. I know, but do not be sorry for following your heart. Be sorry if you let fear keep you from it. He released her and stepped back. Adam needs someone to take care of him while he heals. He cannot travel for weeks, maybe months. You should stay and help with that. And during that time, you two can figure out what you want your future to look like. What about you? What will people say if I am living here and not marrying you? Let them talk. I am too old to care what the neighbors think. Thomas managed a small smile. Besides, with Adam laid up, I genuinely need your help around here. No one can question that. And the children? Samuel and Lucy love you, and they love Adam. I think they will be happy however this works out, as long as the people they care about are happy. Joanna did not know what to say. Thomas was being more generous and understanding than she had any right to expect. Thank you, she finally managed. Thank you for being so kind about this. Just take care of him, Thomas said quietly. He is like a brother to me. I want him to be happy, and I think you can make him happy in a way I never could. He went back inside, leaving Joanna alone with her thoughts. She stood there for a long time, letting the truth of the situation settle into her bones. She loved Adam. He loved her. Thomas was setting them free to build a life together. But Adam was injured and angry, and she had hurt him with her words. She needed to make this right. She went back into the bedroom quietly. Adam was not asleep as he had claimed, but lying with his eyes open, staring at the ceiling. When he heard her enter, he did not look at her. Adam, I need to apologize, Joanna said, coming to sit in the chair beside the bed. What I said before was cruel and untrue. You are not nobody. You are the man who built me a cart, so I could have independence. You are the man who taught Samuel to ride and saved Lucy's baby bird. You are the man the children run to when they are hurt or scared. You are the man I love, and I should never have implied you were not enough. Adam finally turned his head to look at her. What about Thomas? I talked to him. He knows Adam. He said he has known for a while. And he released me from our agreement. He said we should be together. He said that? Yes. He said he wants us both to be happy. Joanna took a shaky breath. So now the question is, what do we do? You need weeks to heal, maybe months. Where do we go? What do we do? Stay here, Adam said immediately. Thomas will need help while I am laid up, and the children need you. Once I am well enough, we can figure out the rest. I have some money saved. Maybe we could find a small piece of land, start our own place. Our own place, Joanna repeated, her heart swelling with hope. Together, Adam confirmed. He reached for her hand, and she took it, threading her fingers through his. Joanna, I cannot promise you an easy life. I do not have much to give you except myself and my willingness to work hard. That is all I need, Joanna said. I do not need grand houses or fancy things. I need a partner who loves me, who will build a life with me, who will not give up when things get hard. And that is you, Adam. Adam pulled her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. Then I guess we are doing this, you and me, building something from nothing. It is not nothing, Joanna said softly. It is everything. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest and sweetest of Joanna's life. She moved her things to Lucy's room so Adam could stay in the main bedroom, and she spent her days nursing him back to health. Doc Morrison came regularly to check on the leg, which was healing well thanks to the good care it was receiving. Adam chafed at being bedridden, but Joanna was ruthless about making him rest. She brought him meals, read to him in the evenings, and sat with him for hours while they talked about everything and nothing. Thomas handled the awkwardness of the situation with grace, treating Joanna and Adam with the same kindness he always had. He explained the situation to Samuel and Lucy in simple terms. Miss Joanna and Adam had fallen in love, and eventually they would get married and have their own home. But for now, they were all going to keep living and working together, because that was what families did. Lucy was thrilled. Does this mean Adam will be my papa too? She asked. No, sweetheart, Adam said gently. Your papa is your papa. But I will still be around to help take care of you and teach you things, just like always. Samuel was quieter about it, but one evening he came to Joanna and said, I am glad you love Adam. He deserves someone who makes him happy, and you make him smile more than I have ever seen. By the end of September, Adam was able to get around on crutches, and by October, he was walking with a cane, though he still limped badly, and Doc Morrison said he probably always would. The leg had healed crooked despite the doctor's best efforts, and while it was functional, it would never be quite right. I am sorry, Doc Morrison said. I did everything I could, but some breaks just do not heal perfect. It is better than losing the leg entirely, Adam said pragmatically. I can still ride and work, even if I am a bit slower. That is all that matters. In November, Adam and Thomas sat down to discuss the future. Adam had saved nearly 2 years' worth of wages, and Thomas knew of a small parcel of land about 5 miles west that was for sale, with a stream running through it and good grazing. It was not much, maybe 80 acres, but it was enough to run a small herd and build a house. I will help you get started, Thomas offered. I can spare a few head of cattle to give you your initial stock and some of the lumber and materials you will need for building. Consider it a wedding present. Adam shook his head. Thomas, I cannot take that from you. You have already done too much. You worked for me for 5 years, Adam. You helped me through the worst time of my life. You are family. Let me do this. After some argument, Adam agreed. He and Joanna spent the winter planning their house and preparing for the spring building season. Adam continued to work for Thomas, doing what he could with his bad leg, and Joanna kept the household running and helped Lucy and Samuel with their schoolwork. On a bright day in January, with the winter sun shining warm and the sky impossibly blue, Adam and Joanna were married in a simple ceremony in the Whitmore parlor. The local minister presided, and Thomas stood up as Adam's best man. Lucy and Samuel were there, dressed in their Sunday best, and a handful of neighbors came to witness the vows. Joanna wore a simple blue dress she had sewn herself, and Adam wore his best shirt and a string tie. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Adam kissed her for the first time, Joanna felt like her heart would burst with joy. That night, they stayed in the small line shack on the property that would become their ranch, just the two of them under the stars. Adam built a fire in the wood stove, and they lay together on a pile of blankets, wrapped in each other's arms. I cannot believe you are really mine, Adam murmured, pressing kisses to her hair, her forehead, her lips. I have been yours since the day you carried me off that stagecoach, Joanna said. I just did not know it yet. They made love slowly, sweetly, learning each other's bodies with gentle hands and whispered words. Afterward, they lay tangled together, talking about their dreams for the future. Adam wanted to build a proper house with a big porch where they could sit in the evenings. Joanna wanted a garden even bigger than the one at the Whitmore Ranch, with vegetables and flowers and maybe some fruit trees. They both wanted children eventually, a whole houseful if they were blessed. We will build something good here, Adam said, something that lasts. We already have, Joanna replied, pressing a kiss to his heart. We have each other. Everything else is just details. The spring and summer of 1879 were filled with hard work. Adam and Thomas, along with Carlos and old Pete and several hired men from town, spent weeks building a small but sturdy house on Adam and Joanna's land. It had 2 rooms to start, with plans to add more as they could afford it. Joanna worked alongside them when she could, cooking meals and helping with the finishing work inside. By August, the house was complete, and she and Adam moved in. It was strange at first, being alone after months of living with Thomas and the children. The house felt very quiet at night, with just the 2 of them. But Joanna loved the intimacy of it, the way she and Adam fell into rhythms and routines that were theirs alone. Adam would come in dusty and tired from working with the cattle, and Joanna would have supper ready and water heated for washing. They would eat together, talking about their days, and then sit on the porch as the sun set, Adam's arm around her and her head on his shoulder. In September, Joanna realized she was pregnant. She told Adam one evening while they were sitting outside, and he whooped with joy and picked her up and spun her around despite his bad leg. A baby! We are going to have a baby! He set her down carefully, his face glowing. Are you all right? Do you feel all right? Should you be working so hard? Joanna laughed at his sudden protectiveness. I am fine, Adam. Women have been having babies and working for thousands of years. I am not made of glass. But Adam fussed over her anyway, taking on more of the heavy work and insisting she rest more. When they told Thomas and the children, Lucy squealed with excitement and immediately started planning to make blankets and clothes for the baby. Samuel, now 10 and trying to act grown up, offered to help Adam with the ranch work, so Joanna did not have to do as much. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the fall and winter. Doc Morrison checked on Joanna regularly and pronounced everything healthy and normal. In early April of 1880, on a morning when the cottonwoods were just starting to bud and the air smelled of spring, Joanna's labor began. Adam rode like the wind to fetch Thomas, who came to stay with Joanna, while Adam went for the doctor and the neighbor woman who served as midwife. The labor was long and hard, lasting through the day and into the night, and Adam paced outside like a caged animal until Thomas finally dragged him back in. You should be with your wife, Thomas said firmly. She needs you. Adam came to Joanna's side and held her hand, murmuring encouragement and wiping her face with a cool cloth. When the pain got too bad, she gripped his hand hard enough to leave marks, but he never flinched. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, their baby was born, a strong, healthy boy with a shock of dark hair and lungs that worked perfectly, judging by his wails. A son, the midwife said, placing the baby in Joanna's arms. Congratulations. Joanna looked down at her son, this tiny, perfect person she and Adam had created, and felt tears of joy stream down her face. Adam leaned over them both, his expression full of wonder. He is beautiful, Adam whispered. He is perfect. What should we name him? Joanna asked. They had discussed names but never quite settled on one. Now looking at his son, Adam said, What about Matthew? It means gift from God, and that is what he is. Matthew Hayes, Joanna said, testing it out. I love it. Thomas came in to see the baby and to congratulate them, his eyes suspiciously bright. He is a fine boy. Lucy and Samuel are going to be so excited. He clapped Adam on the shoulder. You are a father now. How does it feel? Terrifying, Adam admitted. And wonderful. Over the next months, Adam threw himself into being a father with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He was up with Joanna for every nighttime feeding, learned to change diapers and rock Matthew to sleep, and could be found at all hours talking to his son in that low, gentle voice. Joanna watched him with their baby and fell even more in love with her husband. The ranch prospered slowly but steadily. Adam was a good cattleman, and his herd grew. He hired occasional help when needed, and Thomas continued to be a good neighbor and friend, letting them use his bulls for breeding and sharing resources when times were tight. Lucy and Samuel visited often, delighting in playing with baby Matthew. When Matthew was 6 months old, Joanna realized she was pregnant again. This time, Adam took the news more calmly, though he was just as protective. Their second son, James, was born in the summer of 1881, and 2 years after that, their daughter, Rose, came into the world with her mother's features and her father's dark eyes. Life was not always easy. There were hard winters when they worried about the cattle, dry summers when the stream ran low, and the constant work that came with running a ranch and raising children. Adam's leg pained him on cold days, and Joanna sometimes felt overwhelmed by the endless demands of 3 small children. But they faced it all together, partners in every sense of the word. On a warm evening in the spring of 1885, Joanna stood on the porch of their house, which now had 4 rooms and a proper barn and outbuildings. She could hear Adam inside reading a story to Rose while Matthew and James played with wooden horses he had carved for them. The garden was bursting with new growth, and in the distance she could see their growing herd of cattle grazing peacefully. She thought about the frightened, hurting young woman who had stepped off that stagecoach 7 years ago with a broken foot and uncertain future. That woman had been looking for safety and stability, for a place to belong. What she had found was so much more: love that transformed her, a partnership that challenged and fulfilled her, a home built on honesty and hard work and devotion. Adam came out onto the porch, slipping his arms around her waist from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am," Joanna said, leaning back against his solid warmth. "How blessed we are." "I am the lucky one," Adam said, pressing a kiss to her neck. "You took a chance on a drifter with nothing to offer but himself." "You had everything I needed," Joanna corrected, turning in his arms to face him. "You still do." Adam kissed her, sweet and deep, the kind of kiss that still made her heart race even after years of marriage. When they pulled apart, he said, "I love you, Joanna Hayes, more than I ever thought it was possible to love someone." "I love you too," Joanna replied, "from that very first day, even when I did not want to admit it." They stood together on the porch as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and purple. Inside, their children played and laughed. Around them, the land they had built a life on stretched out in all directions. It was not the life Joanna had planned when she answered that advertisement for a mail-order bride. It was infinitely better. She had come to New Mexico territory broken and uncertain, looking for a safe harbor. What she found was love that healed her, a man who saw her true worth, and a future brighter than anything she could have imagined. The journey had been difficult, the path twisted and unexpected, but every step had brought her here, to this place, to this man, to this life that was uniquely and perfectly hers. And she would not change a single thing.